Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going exploring the worlds of Neil Gaiman.
Specifically, the Sandman and American Gods.
Yeah, and we're going to be taking a look at them through the lens of this fascinating academic paper that someone sent in comparing the two.
It's really interesting how both these works explore myths and belief, but in such different
Right
ways.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
You've got one that's this epic graphic novel series.
And the other, a more traditional prose novel.
So how much of a difference does that actually make when it comes to the reading
Oh,
experience?
it's huge. I mean, just think about it for a second. With The Sandman, you've got these incredible visuals that aren't just illustrations, they're like a whole other layer of storytelling, you
Yeah.
know? They bring to life all those abstract ideas about dreams and the afterlife and stuff, which are so hard to put into words.
So the art's kind of doing some of the heavy lifting there.
Exactly. And you've got to remember, The Sandman was created over a span of years with like all these different artists contributing to the visual, so you get this really diverse visual style.
Which kind of adds to that whole dreamlike quality.
Yeah, totally. It's one of the things that makes The Sandman so unique.
I'll be honest, when I first picked up The Sandman, it was a little intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a sprawling series with so many different characters and storylines.
It can be a bit overwhelming at
It's
first.
definitely not a straightforward linear narrative like you get with American Gods.
True, but that episodic nature is actually one of the strengths of The Sandman. Each issue is kind of like its own little world,
Hmm?
exploring different genres and ideas, but they all tie back into this larger mythology that Gaiman has created.
So you can jump in pretty much anywhere and still have this really intense reading experience.
Yeah,
But then as you go further, you start to see how everything's connected. It's
like
like,
the tapestry or something.
yes, with all these intricate threads.
That's a great way to put it, and that's one of the big differences compared to American Gods, where the focus is very much on Shadow Moon's journey across America.
And even though American Gods has these surreal mythical elements, it all has to be conveyed through the prose, right?
Right, Gaiman has to create the entire atmosphere, the emotions, the sense of wonder, purely through his words.
It's a different kind of challenge for a writer, I imagine.
Absolutely, and he does it brilliantly.
I was thinking about those coming to America chapters that are sprinkled throughout American Gods.
Oh, yeah.
They give you these glimpses into the past.
Yeah, like little snapshots of how these different gods came to America with immigrants.
But they never feel like they're pulling you away from Shadow's story.
That's because they're actually enriching the main narrative.
How so?
Well, they highlight this idea of America as a place where different cultures and beliefs have always been kind of colliding and transforming, setting the stage for this whole conflict between the old and new gods.
Okay, so let's talk about world building for a minute, because in The Sandman, we're dealing with this massive cosmology, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
You've got the dreaming, you've got how you even have places from Norse myths.
Gaiman really throws you headfirst into this vast, interconnected reality where, like, dreams and myths and human consciousness all kind of blend together.
And at the center of it all, you have the Endless.
Right. The endless.
Okay, for someone who hasn't read The Sandman, can you explain who the Endless are?
Sure. So imagine these powerful beings like destiny, death, desire, despair.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're not just gods. They actually embody these fundamental aspects of existence.
Uh-huh.
And because they're so closely tied to human experience, they're actually surprisingly relatable.
Even though they have all this cosmic power.
Exactly. So even though the scope is vast and epic, it still boils down to what it means to be human.
Which I think is really interesting.
It is, and that's where American Gods kind of brings things back down to earth.
Literally.
Literally. The focus is on America, a very specific place where gods are actually struggling to survive because people have stopped believing in them.
Yeah, it's like those old gods, the ones brought over by immigrants, are fading away,
Yeah.
while these new gods, representing things like technology and media, are gaining power.
It's a really clever commentary on how our beliefs evolve as society changes, don't you think?
Totally. It makes you wonder what happens to the old stories, the old values, when a culture becomes so obsessed with everything that's new and shiny.
That's the big question at the heart of American Gods, and it's a question that's still so relevant today.
And this whole idea of changing beliefs, it's even reflected in the protagonists of both stories, right?
Absolutely.
So you've got Dream and the Sandman, who's this immortal being. He's supposed to embody dreams and stories. But at the start, he seems so rigid and out of touch.
Well, he has a lot of growing to do.
Really?
Oh, yeah. His imprisonment at the beginning of the story forces him to confront his own flaws and see the world from new perspectives.
And then you have Shadow Moon in American Gods, who starts out as this pretty ordinary guy, just kind of drifting through life.
He's much more relatable for the reader in a way.
Right. He gets swept up in this crazy world of gods and magic. But he's the one the audience kind of goes on this journey with, trying to figure out what's real and what it all means.
Shadow's journey is all about discovering his own identity. His own place in a world where everything he thought he knew has been turned upside down.
It's much more grounded and personal compared to Dream's cosmic struggles.
It is, but both protagonists ultimately go through these journeys of self-discovery, which I think is something we can all connect with on some level, right?
Absolutely. Figuring out who we are and what we believe in is a universal human experience.
And that's where those deeper themes start to emerge, the ones that really make you think.
All right, let's dive into some of those themes, because the Sandman seems to be tackling some pretty big philosophical stuff,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
like identity, responsibility, even the nature of storytelling itself.
It gets pretty heady at times. But Gaiman handles it all so masterfully. You've got Dream literally embodying the power of stories and imagination. But he has to learn that even dreams have consequences. And then you've got characters like Death, who's portrayed in this surprisingly compassionate way, which really makes you think about mortality and the meaning of life.
It's like Gaiman is saying that stories and myths are more than just entertainment.
Yeah.
They're how we make sense of the world and our place in it.
They're fundamental to the human experience. And then you have American Gods, which is very much rooted in the American experience, exploring themes of immigration and cultural assimilation.
Right, and how those things clash with more modern values.
Exactly. And Shadow's journey becomes this metaphor for that struggle, trying to find his place in a new world while still honoring his past.
And there's this really interesting critique of consumerism running through the story, too.
Yeah.
How the new gods feed off our desire for instant gratification and constant stimulation.
It makes you question what we really value as a society, right?
Especially in a world that's so driven by technology and media.
It's a question that resonates even more strongly today than it did when American Gods was first published.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that keeps the story feeling so relevant and thought-provoking.
And that's where we're going to leave things for now.
But already. But we haven't even talked about Gaiman's writing style.
We'll get to that.
Or the incredible impact that both of these works have had on popular culture.
Don't worry. We'll cover all that and more in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned, folks. One thing that always fascinates me about Gaiman is how his writing style can change so much between these two works.
Oh, yeah.
In The Sandman, you get this incredible blend of poetry, gritty prose, almost like hard-boiled detective stuff sometimes.
I know, it's true.
Oh, wild.
I remember reading The Sandman and just being constantly surprised by the language.
Yeah.
Like how it could shift so dramatically from one scene to the next.
Well, that's partly because of the episodic nature of the series, Each issue kind of has its own unique flavor, its own tone and style.
Right.
It's almost like Gaiman is using the series to experiment with different forms of storytelling.
You get those moments where characters are having these really deep philosophical conversations.
Yeah.
And then, bam, you're suddenly thrown into a fast-paced action sequence or something that's darkly humorous.
It's a wild ride. And don't forget those metafictional elements.
Oh, yeah, where he breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah. It's like Gaiman is constantly reminding you that you're reading a comic book,
Playing with the structure of the narrative.
Exactly. And that just adds to that whole dreamlike, surreal quality of the story.
Which is enhanced even further by the artwork.
Oh, absolutely. You've got all these different artists bringing their own visual styles to the series.
It's a visual feast.
It really is. And it complements Gaiman's words perfectly.
Speaking of visuals, it's interesting to think about how Gaiman creates such an immersive experience in American Gods where he doesn't have the benefit of artwork.
Right. It's all about the power of his prose. His descriptions are so rich and evocative, you can practically feel yourself being transported to those places.
I remember reading that scene where Shadow first meets Mr. Wednesday in the diner.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like I could smell the greasy food and feel the sticky vinyl booth.
Jamie's a master of sensory detail.
Yeah.
He uses language to appeal to all your senses.
And he's not afraid to get gritty and real when he needs to either.
Oh, totally. Those descriptions of the desolate highways and those forgotten towns where the old gods are hiding out, they're so powerful and moving.
And those coming to America vignettes. I just love those.
Oh, they're so beautifully written.
They really transport you to those different times and places.
They add so much depth and richness to the whole world building.
Yeah, and they really emphasize this idea of America as a melting pot, not just of cultures, but of beliefs and mythologies as well.
Such a really important aspect of the book.
And structurally, American Gods is much more straightforward than The Sandman.
Oh, definitely more linear.
Yeah, it follows Shadow's journey as like the central thread.
Right. But even within that linear structure, Gaiman still finds ways to surprise you. The pacing is masterful. He builds tension so gradually and keeps you guessing what's going to happen next.
It's a slow burn, but a really satisfying one.
It is. And speaking of satisfying, let's revisit that idea of belief because it plays such a crucial role in both of these works, but in such different ways.
Okay, so in The Sandman, belief is this fundamental force, right?
Yeah, it's almost like it's woven into the fabric of reality.
Like it's eternal and unchanging.
Exactly. Dreams, death, desire, these are concepts that transcend cultures and time periods.
Right, they're part of the human experience regardless of what you believe in.
And the endless, they exist because we believe in them. Those concepts are so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness that they have to exist.
That's like saying that belief itself gives those concepts power.
It does.
Makes them real in a way.
It's a mind-blowing idea when you really think about it, but then you have American Gods where belief is portrayed as something much more fragile.
Oh yeah, in American Gods, the gods are literally powered by belief.
Right. If people stop believing in them, they weaken and fade.
It's a very literal interpretation of that idea.
It is, and it's such a powerful commentary on how our beliefs are constantly changing and evolving.
Especially in a society like ours where we're bombarded with new ideas and information all the time.
Yeah, we're constantly choosing what to believe in, and those choices have real consequences.
Which is a really unsettling thought,
It is.
but also really fascinating.
Absolutely. And that's what makes American Gods so compelling. It challenges us to think critically about our own beliefs and the forces that shape them.
You know, another thing that I love about both of these works is how Gaiman creates such distinct tones and atmospheres.
Oh, yeah, he's a master at that.
American Gods has this really gritty, grounded feel to it.
It does. It's very much rooted in the landscapes and the forgotten corners of America.
It's like Gaiman is saying that magic still exists in the world, but you have to look for it.
You have to be open to the possibility.
Right. And then there's this melancholic, almost elegiac quality to the storytelling.
Yeah, it's like witnessing the slow decay of something that was once really vibrant and powerful.
It's a bit sad.
It is, but there's also this glimmer of hope. You know, like something new is going to emerge.
Right. And that's in such stark contrast to The Sandman, where the tone is often really dark and dreamlike,
Oh, yeah, much more surreal and otherworldly.
with moments of, both beauty and dread,
It's like you're really journeying through the realm of dreams.
confronting all those dark, hidden parts of the human psyche.
And the artwork in The Sandman, it just enhances that mood perfectly.
Oh, it's incredible.
It can be quite gothic and macabre at times, which really reflects those darker themes that Gaiman is exploring.
But it's also incredibly imaginative and expressive.
Absolutely. The way the artists visualize those abstract concepts is just breathtaking.
It's a visual feast that truly complements Gaiman's words.
And both works, despite those differences in tone and style, have had such a massive impact on popular culture.
Oh, absolutely. The Sandman is considered like a landmark achievement in graphic novels.
It proved that comics could be just as literary and thought-provoking as any other form of storytelling.
And it continues to inspire writers and artists to this day.
And American Gods, it really sparked those conversations about cultural identity and mythology.
And the changing nature of belief in a modern world.
Yeah. And let's not forget the impact of their adaptations.
Oh, right.
Especially American Gods,
Right.
Bringing those themes to an even wider audience.
Even if the adaptation wasn't everyone's cup of tea.
True, but it still generated a lot of discussion.
Which just shows how powerful and multi-layered Gaiman's stories are.
They really are. And what stands out to me is how both The Sandman and American Gods ultimately celebrate the power of storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
They remind us that stories have this incredible ability to shape our understanding of the world.
And to connect us to something larger than ourselves.
Exactly. And to inspire us to imagine new possibilities.
That's what makes Gaiman's work so enduring and so resonant with readers even today.
Now that we've delved into all the nuts and bolts of these two works, let's shift gears a bit and talk about their lasting impact.
Their legacy.
Exactly. Both The Sandman and American Gods have achieved this incredible cultural recognition, but for different reasons.
Right.
What do you think makes them so enduring, so resonant with readers, even today?
That's a great question, and it's something we're going to unpack in the final part of our deep dive.
So don't go anywhere, folks.
I think one of the reasons these stories really stick with you
Hmm.
is because they tap into these like universal questions we all ask ourselves at some point.
Right, those big existential questions.
Yeah, like who am I? What do I believe in? What's my purpose? You know,
Totally. And Gaiman explores those questions in such a profound way.
whether it's through this like grand cosmic scale, like in the Sandman,
Yeah.
or a more grounded human level story, like with American Gods.
And even though both works deal with some pretty dark and difficult themes,
Right.
they still offer this sense of wonder and possibility.
Yeah, there's like this underlying optimism.
There is. Like, even when things are at their bleakest, there's still this glimmer of hope.
With the Sandman, you're literally journeying through this realm of dreams and myths and encountering these larger-than-life figures.
Yeah, those endless beings.
Right. But even though they're like gods and demons and all that,
Yeah.
you still find yourself connecting with them on a human level.
Because they're not perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They have their flaws and their insecurities, their hopes and dreams, just like the rest of us.
And that's what makes them so compelling to read about.
Totally. You see yourself reflected in those characters, even the ones that seem totally alien at first.
And with American Gods, even though it's set in this like recognizable version of America,
Yeah.
there's still this like magical, mythical quality to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like Gaiman is seeing that the extraordinary exists alongside the ordinary.
Yeah.
You just have to know where to look for it.
It's about finding the magic in the everyday, the sacred in the mundane, you know?
Right. And I think that resonates with anyone who's ever felt like an outsider.
Yeah.
Like they're searching for something more, something to believe in.
Absolutely.
And for me personally, it's the way Gaiman uses language that really makes these stories so special.
Oh, yeah, he's such a talented writer.
He can be so poetic and lyrical,
Yeah.
but also gritty and realistic sometimes, all within the same paragraph.
He's a master of tone and atmosphere, you know?
Mhm,
He
mhm.
can evoke a sense of dread, wonder, humor, melancholy, all with such precision and control.
It's almost like he's playing an instrument,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Using words to create these complex harmonies that really resonate on an emotional level.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of resonating, I think the fact that both The Sandman and American Gods have been adapted into other mediums says a lot about their enduring appeal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You've got the audio drama and the Netflix series of The Sandman.
Both of which have been huge successes,
Yeah, and then American Gods had its own TV adaptation.
which sparked a lot of debate among fans.
True. It wasn't a perfect adaptation, but it still got people talking, you know?
Yeah, which just goes to show how powerful and multi-layered Gaiman's stories are.
They really are, regardless of the medium they're told in.
Right. It's like their DNA is so strong that they can mutate and evolve without losing their core essence.
That's a great way to put it.
And I think that's a testament to the depth and complexity of Gaiman's writing.
There's always something new to discover.
Yeah, no matter how many times you revisit these stories.
It's like those magic eye pictures, you know?
Oh, yeah.
The ones where you have to stare at them just right to see the hidden image.
The more you look, the more you see.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the worlds of Neil Gaiman,
Yeah.
what do you think is the most enduring legacy of the Sandman and American Gods?
That's a tough one.
I know.
But for me, I think it's their ability to make us question, to challenge our assumptions about the world and ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
They remind us that stories have power, that myths and beliefs can shape our reality, and that the search for meaning is an ongoing journey full of wonder and complexity.
Beautifully said. I also think Gaiman's work, especially these two books, has really helped to elevate the fantasy genre, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Proving that it can be just as literary and thought-provoking as any other form of literature.
Absolutely. He's shown that fantasy can be this powerful tool for exploring philosophical ideas, social issues, and the human condition itself.
So to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating worlds of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman and American Gods.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey through dreams, myths, and the power of belief.
We encourage you to keep exploring Gaiman's work.
Whether you're revisiting these classics or discovering something new from his incredible bibliography,
There's always something to uncover.
something to challenge your perceptions and ignite your imagination.
Thanks for listening and happy